I am a recent transplant to the United States from the UK, and I can honestly say that it has been one of the most humbling, challenging, exciting, inspiring, and exhausting experiences all at once. And it's only been about 3 months. The culture shock has been very real, especially coming from a country where we don't really do things like tipping, or where healthcare is free at the point of use, or where student debt is non-existent. But moving to the US has not only challenged me on an emotional level, but also forced me to become much more tech-savvy. The sheer volume of tech that people here rely on for pretty much every aspect of their lives is incredible and sometimes overwhelming. From banking to food shopping to dating to working out, there is an app for everything here. And today, I want to talk to you about some of the ways that Americans use tech to live their daily lives. Before we get into it, I'd love to ask you to hit that like button if you haven't already. It really helps the channel and I would love to have you here. And with that being said, let's get into it. So first off, let's talk about food. When I was living back in the UK, I would go food shopping maybe once a week, maybe twice a week max. This would involve walking down the aisles of my local supermarket, picking out fruit and veg, picking out other essentials for the week, and then going to the checkout to pay. It was a simple process, usually taking no longer than 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. Here in the US, however, people seem to shop much more frequently, but they also tend to use click and collect services or home delivery services more frequently. For example, when I wanted to buy a cake for my mom's birthday, I went onto the website of a popular grocery store chain and I found the exact cake that I wanted. I placed it in my online cart, paid for it, and then I just went to pick it up in store a few hours later. No browsing, no queuing. This is something that I did again recently with a friend of mine. We were running low on coffee, so instead of making the 10-minute walk down to our local supermarket, we ordered some online. The order arrived within 2 hours and cost us about $35 including a service fee and tip. Now, if you're thinking, oh, wow, that sounds so convenient, there are definitely downsides to this way of shopping. First of all, the fees add up. So if you are ordering regularly, you're paying a lot more for your groceries than you would back home. The second downside is that you cannot be as spontaneous. So if you're relying on deliveries and click and collect, you're not able to just decide on the spur of the moment to bake a cake and realize that you're missing an ingredient and then pop down the shops to grab it. Another thing that has surprised me here is how cashless everything seems to be. Back in the UK, we've been using contactless cards for several years now. In fact, last year contactless payments made up for 60% of the total payments in the UK. And while this is high, it's absolutely nothing compared to America where 28% of consumers are completely cashless. That means that they don't carry any cash or checks at all. Instead, they use a mixture of credit and debit cards and digital wallets like Apple Pay. For example, when I went to a restaurant recently and I pulled out my card to pay the bill, the waiter said, "We don't take cards at the table. You need to go inside to pay." I was confused because I thought that this is what the card machine was for. But no, he insisted that I go and pay inside. So I walked into the restaurant and there was this big sign that said, "Cash is no longer accepted." Cash is only used in America for tipping, which is another source of culture shock for me. If you do go to a restaurant in the US and you have a good experience, you will typically leave a tip of anywhere between 15 and 20% of the pre-tax amount. If you're eating in a group of friends or family, each person will typically put down their own individual check and then leave their own tip. Now, I actually did something quite embarrassing recently where I went out for dinner with a group of friends and I didn't realize that I had accidentally been added to someone else's bill. So, I put my card in and paid for the meal without realizing that I had already paid for my friends' meals as well. They were lucky that I had enough money in my account. I ended up owing about $140 in overdraft fees. Now in the UK we don't really tip. When we do tip it's usually just a few pounds or dollars, but to round up to the nearest pound or dollar. In London, a lot of restaurants include a service charge of 12.5% on your bill by default, and this is then shared amongst all the waiting staff. And in my opinion, this is fair enough because waiting tables is not easy, and those tips are usually distributed fairly among all of the waiting staff. But I think that the tipping culture here is kind of broken. I understand why servers earn less and rely on tips, but I think that 15 to 20% is a lot to be expected of customers. I recently went to a restaurant in Texas, and the waitress came to our table several times to check in on us and see if we needed anything. She was very attentive and friendly. And at the end of the meal, she brought out a dessert for us. So my friends and I felt really bad when we left her a tip of only $5. We actually questioned whether we should have left anything at all because she had not asked for a tip. But my American friend explained to me that it's customary to always leave something. But I think that in a perfect world, tipping should be based on your actual experience, not necessarily on some arbitrary percentage of the price of the meal. Okay, so another area where I've seen lots of technology being used here is in the world of dating. I personally don't use any dating apps, but I know that they are extremely popular here. In fact, 40% of Americans who are single and looking for a relationship have used a dating app. And according to research, 1 in 3 millennials met their spouse through an online dating service. Dating apps like Tinder, Hinge, and Bumble have completely changed the way that people date and meet potential partners. And it seems to be the norm here rather than the exception. Now, another app that I have heard a lot about is TaskRabbit, which is an app that allows you to hire people to help you with everyday tasks like assembling furniture or mounting TVs. I haven't used it yet myself, but I think that it could come in handy. Again, this app shows the heavy reliance on technology that permeates every aspect of daily life here in the United States. Another thing that I have noticed here is that Americans really like to track their workouts. So if they are going for a run, they will use an app like Strava to track their route, the distance they ran, and even their pace. There are also tons of different fitness trackers that people use to monitor their steps, their sleep patterns, their heart rate, and so on. And the newest addition to this world of health tech is AI-powered workout buddies. So these are basically virtual coaches that use artificial intelligence to tailor workouts to users' needs and preferences. And they also offer feedback and motivation in real time. There are obviously so many more areas where technology plays a big role in daily life here. But I'm curious to hear from you guys today. What are some of the ways that you use tech in your daily lives? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you learned something new. And as always, if you did enjoy it, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.